listeners, watchers, readers of all kind, welcome to the Unfinished TBR. I'm Hannah, and today is going to be a very special rendition of our debriefs, our monthly debriefs, because we are taking it back in time to before we started the podcast, and we're doing this over Snapchat to each other. So things are going to be a little bit different than what you've been experiencing with past debriefs, but we're going to make it exactly how it's always been, a rundown, a description. Let's get started. Let's start with what we are currently reading. I am currently listening to Never a Hero by Vanessa Lee. I started this one a couple months back and realized, I don't remember the first book. And so I had to go back and re-listen to the first book again before I could start this one. So I finally re-listened to the first one, and I'm finally for real on the second one now. And then I've still got my 2 physical books, because I didn't get a half of what I wanted done on my vacation week. I didn't get a half of what I wanted to get done. So I did not finish those 2 physical books. But I got to see my nephews. So, I mean, can anybody blame me? That my nephews are stinking cute. So I got to go hang out with them, and I took the opportunities. But anyway, so I've still got those 2 physical books, which is Sentinels in the Oakwood and The Skeleton Crew, short stories by Stephen King. And I've not got anything on my Kindle right now. I know I want to reread Quicksilver before I read Brimstone. I'm already behind. Every time I see spoilers online, I'm like immediately scrolling away, trying to avoid them. But, you know, what can you do? I got to jump on it, especially with our book club coming up. We have a book club coming up. We're going to be meeting on the 20th, but the episode won't air until the new year, like late January or something. Be looking for it then. Late January, early February. We'll hammer it out. Okay, so the first one that I read for this debrief was actually at the end of October. I did say I was going to try to finish that, and I did. It is Bound by Lies and Fate, book 1 of the Woodville Springs Pack series. It's by Mandi, Graceson. I'm going to go ahead and read the description before I get into it. Eden has spent her life building walls and crushing in the courtroom as a top New York lawyer. But when a shattering loss leaves her questioning everything she thought she knew, her search for answers leads her to Ashton, a dangerously alluring stranger whose dark, magnetic charm conceals a world of secrets. Their connection is instant, undeniable, and deeply complex. As they collide, Eden finds herself unraveling a web of lies that could break them both. Can their love survive the truth, or will the past rip them apart? It was fine, like, for a werewolf. It's a werewolf mate situation, which I haven't been into for a very long time. I started with that on Wattpad, like that was way back in the day. That was the Wattpad thing, but I've never really been into it in regular books. It's fine. I guess my thing is with the whole mates thing, there's an undeniable connection, right? But it's like if you rely just on that connection, it makes it faulty. If you don't expand on that, spoiler alert for A Court of Mist and Fury. Take Reese and Farrow, for example. Like, we didn't know that they were mates until, what was that, 3/4 of the way through the book? And at that point, it was like they were friends. They had a connection that was deeper than just a bond telling them that they were connected. A bond that just tells you you're connected sounds more like Tamlin's parents. That sounds more like Reese's parents, where it was just they had that bond, and so they did the bare minimum for each other, procreated, and then said, okay. Like, didn't feel anything beyond that. So for this one, it was like they're perfect strangers, and suddenly they're ready to knock each other down and like have sex like immediately. It's exhausting. It's not realistic. It's not, and obviously none of it's realistic. That came out wrong. I don't know how to explain it. I can excuse it when it's done well. I like fated mates and everything. When it's done like this, I don't really like it. And I hate to say that, because this author actually reached out to us on Instagram and recommended this to start with her books. It's not for me. On top of that, I felt like it was way too sex heavy. I was explaining this to Amanda, because the thing that got me was it was way too much her trying to think these decisions through and like decide if she was going to stay there and like what their connection was going to be and all this stuff. It was way too much of her trying to decide that when the decision was so clear to begin with. Like, her reasons for constantly bringing it back up, it got exhausting. And then it expanded too much on the sex. Like, there were way too many sex scenes. It was very heavy on that. And again, no connection, just sex. Which isn't my thing. If that's what you're looking for, if that's what you're going into a fantasy book, okay, that I'm not going to judge you for doing that. I think there's better. I don't know of anybody who would go into a fantasy book just looking for the sex side of things in a fantasy setting. But if that is what you're looking for, then this is a book for it. I just need more than that. If it's a fantasy book, I need the action. I need that to actually be the main focus of the book, is the action, the romance and sexual side of things kind of on the back burner a little bit. I don't feel like that's too much to ask for. I think that's normal. I don't know. So maybe I'm the weird one here. Who knows? But anyway, I read it on Kindle Unlimited. It is on Kindle Unlimited. So I read it on Kindle Unlimited from October 3rd to October 27th. Another thing is you do semi have to be okay with errors and typos. And I don't think it's too much to ask for good grammar. And so that usually any kind of grammatical errors or like big typos, like how a sentence is structured, any errors like that get on my nerves because it feels like simple things to me. Some people can look past it and that's perfectly fine, but there's a reason that was my number one job preference back in the day, was being an editor, is so books could avoid things like this. And obviously my life has completely taken a different turn. So here we are at a bank. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with errors. Obviously, with an indie author, the fact that an indie author is able to put out their stories in any capacity, great. Good for you. I'm not going to gravitate toward it normally. I will read it, obviously, if somebody requests me to. But that's not going to be my go-to reach, because I know how I feel about errors. I know how I feel about typos. I want to avoid them when I can. And typically, bigger published books are going to not have as many errors like that. In fact, so few errors that the few that I find in those big published books, I'm like, I found an error that an editor missed, and I feel good about it. It's an ego thing, really. It was definitely long in the wrong places, short in the wrong places. The action scene at the end where, spoiler alert, she gets taken and then rescued. All of that happened in like half a chapter. Her getting taken and rescued. But there were like 5 times she went back and forth on whether she was going to stay or not. Huh? Like, that's topsy-turvy for me. Even the sex scenes felt rushed because there was no, it wasn't good build-up. It was just suddenly they were doing it. No nodding though. So good for her for not including that, right? Yay for a werewolf romance novel that doesn't have nodding. Because I'm traumatized just from hearing about Bride. I gave it 2.5 out of 5 right down the center. There's only 3 reviews and it's a 3.7 overall. It is on Kindle Unlimited. If you don't have Kindle Unlimited, it's only $3.14 with Kindle regularly. So after that, I read on Kindle from October 27th to November 4th, Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig, the sequel to One Dark Window, which I read last month. So since it's a sequel, I'm not going to read the synopsis just in case it gives any spoilers. My biggest thing with this book, I have a few weird things actually, but like the biggest thing, I actually messaged Elle as soon as I finished it. I was on my way to mom and dad's and I actually like filmed it for us, and then I was like, wait a second, I don't want to spoil anything for Casey. So I had to back it up, and once I made it to mom and dad's, I made a different video. But I was like, Elle, how in the world did you not mention Elm Rowan? I was all on board for Raven U in the first one. All on board. Raven U is nothing to me now. Like, it's still cute. It's still a cute connection or whatever. But Elm? First of all, the way that he drew Ione, just subconsciously, if somebody drew me, I'm pretty sure I would melt on the spot. I wouldn't know what to do because it's like, humans are so fascinating in the aspect of having so much love for somebody that they have to create art out of it. Like, people who paint their spouses, people who put their spouses into songs and like make these beautiful instrumental pieces for them. That amount of love is, oh my gosh, like so much love in you that you can't contain it. You have to get it out and express it one way or another. Ah, amazing. So Elm did that with Ione by drawing her in the library, just subconsciously. Suddenly he looks down and it's her eyes that he's drawn. And the fact that he was able to recount, 1, the first time he ever saw her, and 2, with perfect clarity, how she looked the times that he had seen her at the castle before, and at the solstices and stuff. Like, I melted! I love him. I love him so much. Like, Raven U is here. Elm is outside of the car right now. Like, he's on top of my car with how high he is. Oh, love him. Oh, and his backstory, that sweet little angel baby, did not deserve the amount of torture that he received. Anyway, okay, so here's the weird part about that though, okay, so it was Elle and Ione. Well, because of the maiden card, making Ione even more beautiful and clearing out her perfections, her imperfections and stuff, all I could think about, my fan casting for her is Peach from Super Mario Bros. So that makes Elle kind of a sexy Mario, I guess. Which is so weird to say. But I guess that's the equivalent, and that's all I could picture. That is all I could picture, except Mario was in black. Because Elle's always in black. But it didn't ruin the picture for me. Like, I was just fine. I think that's the most embarrassing part for me, is I was just fine through all of those scenes. Him looking like Mario and her looking like Peach. Come at me all you want, but apparently that's a hear me out for me that I didn't even know existed until this book. It might have been that, you know what might have done it? It might have been that scene where he was talking about how he could have the girl in the library if he wanted to, but all he wanted was Ione. But he went into detail of how it would have been with that girl. Yeah, I was locked in. And it was just Mario. And I was fine with that. I did not make the connection until the very end of the book that the 3 clicks that the monster does, like with his teeth and with his claws and stuff, the 3 clicks that is reminiscent of the cards. How did that not click for me? Until, I'm telling you, it was the very last time it was mentioned. Which I think was in the epilogue where she said she thought she heard it. And she was like looking around for it. I was like, the 3 click. Because he can't use Providence cards. So, oh my gosh. Amazing. This was the perfect, a duology was perfect for this entire book, or this entire world, this realm. It was perfect duology. And you know me, I am a big series reader, so the fact that I'm okay with having less books, wild. I love that the Nightmare got his redemption. I am so glad that he got his redemption, and I love the relationship that he formed with Elspeth. Obviously, being in her mind, that's like a huge difference kind of relationship, you know. And I love it. Whenever he punched that one guard that took them and broke her nose, and she was like, that was the Nightmare was like, that was for your nose, Raven. And Raven was like, I didn't ask you to do that. And he said, no, but Elspeth did. I love that. Love their relationship. I think it definitely reminded him of his daughter Tilly, I think. And he got his chance at redemption. The Civil Wars band, a lot of their songs, that is what I thought of when I was reading this book. Like, it's the same kind of vibe. It's the same kind of feelings that those songs give me, this book gave me. A lot of parallels, one being the Violet Hour. So you should look it up. The Violet Hour, Dance Me to the End of Love, Poison and Wine, the one that got away, 20 Years. 20 Years is a good one, actually. Tracks in the Snow might be a good one. Anyway, I plan on making a TikTok out of all the Civil War songs that, like, gave me this same vibe, so people can agree with me or not, because I'm very curious on if I'm the only one that gets the same vibes. Anyway, I gave it 4.75 out of 5. It is a 4.4 overall. It's on Kindle Unlimited, and it was $9.98 paperback is the cheapest option. Okay, the next one I read on Kindle as well. I was knocking it out with Kindle this month, but I read Playing with Fire by Rhea Wilde. Specifically the Rhea Wilde one. LJ Shin does have a Playing with Fire one. It looks like a sports romance, I think. This one is by Rhea Wilde. I read it from November 5th to November 8th. Let me preface this before I read this synopsis. This is the dirtiest book I've ever read. I've read 50 Shades of Grey. I have read the Sweetest Oblivion, the Mafia series. I've read some spicy books. This one takes the cake for being this is the dirtiest, while still being good. Like, obviously, you know, it's no Four Partners like, dang, what was the one? The book club one from this past year. But that also wasn't good. This book was good. I was invested in the story. And there was just plenty of sex to go with it. Now, let me read the synopsis. Malachi Farrow needs a wife, and I would have done anything to save the last piece of my family. Now I'm here, in his house, seeing firsthand how dangerous this man is. He's merciless, brutal, and cold, and my new husband. He tossed my life into the air and then watched it fall and shatter. So now I'm going to make his life hell. Playing with fire has never been this much fun. And if I get burned in the process, well, I'll be sure to take him down with me. Olivia, and then this is Malachi's side of things. Olivia Louder is the ticket to keeping my throne. In this organization, there are rules every leader must follow, and taking a wife is one of them. It's only supposed to be a business transaction, a signed contract to satisfy old traditions. That was until she stormed into my house like a little hellcat, and I simply couldn't resist. Playing with Olivia is just too much fun when the rest of my life is so organized. But then the games start to feel a little too real. And with every day that passes, she climbs further beneath my skin. Now that I have her, I'm finding I want her in every way possible, even if that means we both go up in flames. Oh my gosh. Whew. So, this is actually another one. I was just cleaning out my Kindle Unlimited library, going with stuff that I'd had in there for a while just to clean it up. So imagine my surprise when this ended up being, without a doubt, the dirtiest book I've ever read. I was like, what took me so long, for one thing? And two, I was like, not expecting that. Now, here's what I will say. You have to be okay with two different things. You have to be okay with a dominant male who likes to punish sexually. And you have to be okay with him calling her kitten. Yeah, like, obviously that's a tough one. That was almost the deal breaker for me. I'm so glad that I pushed through, though, because Rhea Wilde is wild. Rhea Wilde knows what's up. I, for one, love a dominant man. Funny enough, Malachi as a person gave me Matthew energy. Like, just overall, just Matthew energy. The ready to ready to somebody for touching his girl and stuff like that. Like, that's Matthew, which is nice. Which might have helped make it extra sexy for me. I don't know. The ending was predictable and overly sweet. That's typically the case. So, I mean, it did lose a couple points for that, but it was still, I still loved the rest of the book. I gave it 4 out of 5. It's a 4 overall with only 8 reviews. So more people need to get on this, because it is on Kindle Unlimited. It's $3.99 regular on Kindle, or whenever I looked at it, I can't confirm if this is still the case, but whenever I looked at it, it was $4.82 on Audible. So that's less than half of a credit, maybe even almost a third of a typical credit. So don't know how the narrators are. Obviously this one has a lot of sex, so you know, those are easier to break with a bad narrator, is when there's the plenty of sex scenes. So do with that what you will. Maybe download a sample first. After that, I listened to Only a Monster by Vanessa Lynn. I've already read the synopsis for this one back in September's debrief of 2024. But this time I read it from November 4th to November 8th. So with this book, it is young adult. There were a couple lulls, but overall original and thought-provoking. Very interesting take on a magic system. Now, one thing that I did not clock whenever I read it the first time, and I don't know why it clocked this time, but something about this and the dynamic between Joan and Aaron. Yeah, it's Aaron. Aaron Oliver. Something about their dynamic, something about them as people, put me in mind of Hermione Granger and Draco Malfoy. Now, I am a Harry Potter purist. I do not subscribe to any of the Hermione. However, I like the idea of it. I just don't like seeing it done with Harry Potter characters when I'm a purist whenever it comes to Harry Potter. Like, keep it all canon. I don't want to talk about other possibilities. So this, where these characters gave me those vibes, I think it gives you that slice of Hermione without ruining Harry Potter. So if somebody's a purist like me, but also likes the idea of the Hermione in a different context, this is your book. Also, if you're not able to handle the manacled stuff, because I did look that up just out of curiosity, because I was like, maybe if I liked this dynamic enough, this time, maybe if it made me think of that, maybe that means I need to give it a try, right? No, I read the dang description. You're telling me there's non-consensual sex in it, and like they're forced, it's basically a breeding situation that they're in. What? And it's however long? No, I'm not touching that thing for my own mental well-being. Not judging anybody who has read it. I just cannot handle it. So if you're like me and you cannot handle it, and also a Harry Potter purist, there's a backup. Only a Monster by Vanessa Lynn. Joan made an impossible decision at the end. I do remember that much. Oh gosh, I felt for, I don't know what I would do in that situation. That's why I say this book is very thought-provoking, because I don't know what I would do in her situation. And it's just, gosh, I can't wait to see how this second one plays out. I'm about 24% of the way through this second one, so And now I gotta take a break because I gotta get back to work. But this one was 4 out of 5 stars. It's a 3.8 overall. It's on Libby. The next cheapest option is $7.99 on Audible. So, alright, I'm taking a break. That puts me about halfway through. Okay, so I made it back home and I'm in our normal space. But okay, so one that I started and decided to DNF on November 9th. I got about 29% of the way through. It was Tempt the Flame by Wilde. And this is book 2 of the Playing with Fire. And it was like each of their best friends getting together. The reason I DNF'd it is because the friend, the main male character, I can't even remember his name, but he was part of the mafia too, right? You know, that's how they're friends, is because they're all in the mafia together. But so he was in the mafia too, but he was more like a golden retriever type guy. And once it got to the sexual side of things, which was already happening at 29% for one thing, it was like the exact same mannerisms and stuff as Malachi in the first book. And I was like, but in the first book, this guy was more of a golden retriever type guy. He wouldn't be... I didn't see him being as dominant as Malachi was in the bedroom. Like, and I don't know, these aren't my characters, obviously, these are Rhea Wilde's characters, she can make them however she wanted, but it was basically about to do a repeat of the first book, except they were friends to lovers instead of enemies to lovers, and I'd already had that, and where my mind was like, oh no, this isn't what he would do. I just wasn't going to do that to myself. So I did end up just DNFing the exact same day, that same day. It is on Kindle Unlimited, so I didn't waste my money. Obviously I didn't put a rating down because I didn't finish it, but I still highly recommend Playing with Fire. Okay, so after that, I listened on Libby from November 10th to November 13th. I listened to Finlay Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead. It's by Elle Cosimano. Elle just read this one not too long ago. I think last month even. Either September or October's debrief. This was set in the holiday season, and I unintentionally read this during the holiday season. Like, this was an unintentional lineup of book timeline and my timeline. Like, loved it. I am so glad that the second one was just as good as the first. You know, that series like this, it can really like fall apart. We see with Playing with Fire and Tempting the Flame. But Finlay Donovan is killing it, was fantastic. Finlay Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead was fantastic. So, because of that, I've been recommending this series to everyone and their mother. This is the series. This is... I need this in a TV show. I need it. And it's set up perfectly for it. I got to looking at how many books there are in this series. There's like 6. 2 spin-offs. Like, why is this not a TV show yet? HBO, get with it. Paramount Plus, get with it. At this point, Apple TV, get with it. I don't care which one does it, just do it. Steven is so still in love with Finlay. Like, he's a douchebag, and I would never want her to go back to him. But he's definitely still in love with her. Which is a fantastic ego boost. Like, she deserves that ego boost. Finlay's mom? Finlay's mom? Finlay's and Farrow's relationship reminds me of us. Like, in the way of, we love each other so much. Like, we have such a strong bond. God, I really hope I'm not the only one that feels this way in this friend group. But, like, where we have such a strong bond, where we feels like we've been through so much together, each of us. And it's like, it's just made our bonds just, like, so strong. And so whenever she, like, and, like, she was talking about, Stephen had made Finlay's name the security question for his security system. And she was thinking that the constant in her life is Vero, and how Vero's name would be her security question. And I was like, I thought back to my first visit to a doctor without mom, which I was still like a preteen at this time, like maybe early teenager. And whenever it said emergency contact, not even putting my parents down, like Dad let me fill out the paperwork myself. I put Allie down. Here she was, what, 4 months younger than me, and I was like, Allie, she's my emergency contact. Like, what's she gonna do? But it's like stuff like that, you know, like, I don't know. It just gave me the warm and fuzzies about you guys, and I just love you so much. Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, I'm 100% Team Nick. I like Julian. I think she needed that little fling. And it's obvious that he's serious. It's not like his intention was to be a fling, but he is. You know, like he's the cute younger guy that she has great sex with. But Nick's got the hot dad side to him. Plus he's a cop. And not the bad kind. Like, even better. Because he knows, like, literally at the end of the book, he knows that Finlay's got something going on. But he's still like, we're under the mistletoe. Get over here. Like, I'm convinced he's going to understand at the end, but I don't see how he possibly could. He's part of the law. Like, he's like, either going to have to switch sides or quit or something, because how can he continue to be a detective after this? You know, but I don't know. I just want it to work out at the end. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. It's a 4 overall. It was on Libby, and I didn't realize it was on Kindle Unlimited. Did I just black out when Allie was telling us this? Because I did not remember it being on Kindle Unlimited, so this might be a new thing. I don't know. But hey, free reading. If you don't want to go that route, it is $10.49 on Audible, which is still cheaper than a credit, no matter how you slice it. So, go for the cheap options. Okay. This is my big one for the month. The one I'm going to deep dive on and pick apart and completely annihilate. Which you guys have already heard this a little bit, but our listeners and our watchers and our readers of all kind have not heard about it. So buckle up, because we're about to talk about Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I listened on Libby from November 13th to November 18th. I am going to start with this stupid little insert that they do on the description, because I want you to hear how terribly wrong this is for them to describe it like this. It says, a New York Times bestseller, perfect for fans of Sarah J. Maas, This young adult fantasy follows the forbidden romance between a powerful prince and an ordinary girl as they try to survive their kingdom's grueling laws, pitting them against each other. Immediately no. Immediately no. No. They're not the same in the slightest, except for the fact that he has powers and she doesn't. And I think there's one other connection, which I will get to. So let's continue with the synopsis. She is the very thing he spent his whole life hunting. He is the very thing she's spent her whole life pretending to be. Only the extraordinary belong in the kingdom of Ilia, the exceptional, the empowered, the elites. The powers these elites have possessed for decades were graciously gifted to them by the plague, though not all were fortunate enough to both survive the sickness and reap the reward. Those born ordinary are just that, ordinary. And when the king decrees that all ordinaries be banished to preserve his elite society, lacking an ability suddenly becomes a crime, making Peyton Gray a felon by fate and a thief by necessity. Surviving in the slums as an ordinary is no simple task, and Peyton knows this better than most. Having been trained by her father to be keenly observant since she was a child, Peyton poses as a psychic in the crowded city, blending in with the elites as best she can to stay alive and out of trouble. Easier said than done. When Peyton unsuspectingly saves one of Ilia's princes, she finds herself thrown into the purging trials. The brutal competition exists to showcase the elite's powers, the very thing Peyton lacks. If the trials and the opponents within them don't kill her, the prince she's fighting feelings for certainly will if he discovers what she is, completely ordinary. Now let's get into this, because the only reason that I'm glad that I read this book is to dissuade people from reading this book. I'm glad that I read it so I can tell people, don't read it. And have backing proof on why they shouldn't. So let's get into it, shall we? I want to call this author out for plagiarizing. I think that's very... because here's the thing for me. I have original ideas in my head, right? Things that I think are original, and there's been times in the past where I have read a book and I'm like, oh, I had that concept kind of half formed in my head. Here's the full-blown concept. And then I realize, okay, I will tuck that away and not, unless that changes or anything, I'll never touch that again, because I have read something that is similar to similar. Here this lady is a New York Times bestseller for blatantly stealing an idea. And it's frustrating to me as somebody with original ideas that will probably never hit the New York Times bestseller. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a little bit of a pride thing. It's me, obviously. Like, it's a little bit of a pride thing. But, like, also, it's just wrong to steal people's work. So, what it is the Red Queen series by Victoria Aveyard, which I did end up DNFing the series. That was for personal reasons, and I could see the way that the war storm was going, and I just it exhausted me even just thinking about it, so I just decided to DNF it. However, I stand in the Red Queen's corner, because this was 100% stolen from Red Queen. That was published in 2019. This was published in 2023. 4 years. She's not beating the allegations of plagiarism with that kind of timeline. So the whole thing with the Red Queen is a poor girl from the slums, has a knack for thieving, and has a best friend who is more like a sister that has a knack for sewing. In the Red Queen series, it was a sister, but in this one, it's a friend that's like a sister. Literally that similar. She tries to thieve from somebody hot. Turns out it's the prince, who is like a warrior. Identical. And he lets it slide because she's also hot. Identical. The hot prince has a hot prince half-brother. And she starts to like both hot princes. Exactly like Red Queen. Also, the one prince teaches her how to dance for the ball. The original hot prince teaches her how to dance for the ball. Identical. Literally identical. She's seen as lesser because she doesn't have powers. Identical. The kingdom's outcasts band together to revolt. Identical. There is an unplanned attack at a ball in the castle that goes awry. Identical. That's way too many similarities for it to be a coincidence. I mean, it's copy and paste almost. Okay, other honorable rip-offs, because once you start with one, you start noticing other things that could also be plagiarism. Maybe it's looking a little bit too far into it, but once you start on that slippery slope, everything looks like it's stolen. So that's what this author needs to realize, even if it wasn't the intention to pull from these other items. So here are the other honorable rip-offs. The Hunger Games. Contestants are showcased and interviewed by a quirky, colored-haired host. Tell me that's not the Hunger Games. It's all a show. It's all broadcast for the kingdom. She has a knack for archery in these games. The king finds a way to force them together to fight and keep things interesting. Again, way too many similarities. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. 3 trials, the last one being a maze that changes its borders occasionally. The prize in the middle isn't what she was expecting. Identical, right? But here's what's the worst part about it being pulled from Harry Potter in this instance. It's pulled from the movies. Not even the books. It's pulled from the movies. Because there's no magical creatures or anything. The walls just shift. So that automatically aggravates me even more. The One Dark Window ripoff. The people in the kingdom. Anybody who gets sick gets powers. And also, on top of that, the boy in charge of getting rid of people makes the decision to secretly not let them die and let them just get away and run away. Again, might be unintentional, but after so many similarities to other things, you start questioning everything. Divergent. One of the contestants throws a dagger that nicks the female main character's ear to make a statement. That's way too close to be a coincidence. And there's so many different ways that you can do that. There's much more original ways than you can do that than to go with the one that is specifically in Divergent. Ektar. Kai calls her darling. Again, might be a coincidence. There's very few pet names out there. But Throne of Glass. Kai smells like pine. Peyton smells like lavender. Kind of sounds like Rowan and Selena. The Incredibles. The Incredibles is on this list. You know how? There is a side character with straight, black, almost blue hair that is timid and can disappear. Yeah. Violet. Absolutely insane. The amount of parallels between this book and other pieces of work. Not even all books. Not even all books. That's insane. If it weren't for the plagiarism, I would feel like this series would end up being this generation's Twilight. Meaning, it would be good for the young people that haven't read better yet. So whenever I was in middle school reading Twilight, I hadn't read Harry Potter yet. I hadn't read The Hunger Games yet. I hadn't read these books that I love more before I read the Twilight series. So for me, the Twilight series was right up at the top, like top tier literature, you know? But now, here I've gone back and reread them, and they are not it. So if it wasn't for the plagiarism, I would say that this series would be this generation's Twilight. However, once they find all the stories that this one steals from, they think back on this series and realize just how cringy it all is. Like, from the get-go, when I met Kai, I was immediately ready to throw up. He gave me the biggest ick. And she tried to play it off like he was a charming douchebag, but really he was just a douchebag. And a hot one at that. The kind of douchebag where they know they're hot. The frat boy. The frat boys that know that they're good looking and take any opportunity to showcase that fact in the most cringe ways possible. Yes, there's women that fall for it. I was 20 once. Yes, I fell for it. But, like, now I'm 29 and so whenever I get that vibe from somebody, I'm immediately like, get me away as quickly as possible. Where's the door? I need to go. And so I got that from the very beginning of this series. Adina and Peyton's nicknames for each other were Pay and A. Do you know how confusing that got with the audiobook? Like, because, heck, I thought her name was Hayden for the longest time because the narrator didn't, like, it wasn't a very sharp Pay. So if you think I'm being sharp with the name Peyton now in this debrief, it's because the audiobook wasn't crisp with it, and I want to make sure that people know what her name is correctly. Because I thought it was Hayden. I kept going between Hayden and Peyton. So their nicknames for each other were Pay and A, which made it even more confusing with the fact that I thought it was Hayden too. So it was like it's just way too close. Why not Pay and Addie for Adina? That makes sense. And that's a clear distinction between the two, while still being a nickname for each other. I don't know. The biggest, well, obviously besides the plagiarism, the second biggest thing that, like, really irked me is she's gone this entire book thinking that the king was the one in her memories that killed her father. She watched it happen. It was, I mean, she was a little kid. She was a young, probably teenager. She watched it happen, and in her mind, she was like, that's the king. That's the king. That was the king that came and did that. Turns out it was this king's son that she's been falling in love with, Kai, who is her age. Okay, so imagine he got started young. Imagine the king got started young. And so there is a 14-year age gap between him and his son. between teenager and late 20s, there is a huge difference in how people look at those two ages. You can usually tell, especially, you can just usually tell when somebody's a little bit younger. It would be around her age, so like teenage years, versus somebody at the very least late 20s. On top of that, it's not even the son that looks like him. This son does not have his coloring. He's got his mom's coloring. And so you're telling me you confused blonde hair with black hair? And at least a 29-year-old man with a 14-year-old boy? Make that make sense. She needs glasses if she couldn't tell the difference between... No, she's got bigger problems than just glasses if she can't tell the difference in hair color. This is dark brown hair. Even in the light. Even with the light. It is dark brown hair. Nobody's mistaken this head for blonde. I obviously was even hesitant to give it a 1. I gave it a 1. Somehow, it's a 4.2 overall. Boycott these books for plagiarism alone. Second reason, poor writing. It's on Libby and Kindle Unlimited. $6.95 paperback is the cheapest option. Do not waste your money. Don't give this author your money. Nobody who plagiarizes has any right to take any money. So, after that, I listened from the 19th to the 26th. Speaking of, I finished the Twilight series and read Breaking Dawn by Stephenie Meyer. I've never wanted to be a mother. Like, that's never been a desire of mine, even before I read these books. Now that I think about it, the entire pregnancy scene in Breaking Dawn, if I was thinking about being a mother as a child, that would have completely diverted me. And like, that entire scene, I did not remember how horrific that pregnancy was. Between it draining her life and her having to drink blood to get any semblance of normalcy back, her breaking her spine. And I probably didn't understand all these terms whenever I was reading it through the first time. I probably didn't understand the whole placenta, dropping and the child suffocating and everything like that. I probably didn't understand all that. I've had enough women around me be pregnant to where I understand at least a little bit. So maybe that made it extra horrific for me, and that's why I was able to glaze over it as a teenager, because I swear it wasn't this horrific. Whenever I was a teenager. How are these... That was terrifying. I've never wanted to not be a mother more than having read that section. I was ready to throw up multiple times at the thoughts of what was going on. Could never be me. Also, the idea of Jacob imprinting on Bella's baby and that explaining why they had a connection long before Renesmee was even conceived is the stupidest thing ever. And Stephenie Meyer can try to justify it all she wants. Imprinting on a child is weird. weird. Like, it's the dumbest. Like, there's no. 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 I would be more understanding of it being like a fated mates thing, where you can feel the connection, but it's not like, because even Quinn, where he imprinted with a baby, he was all about that kid. Like, he was everywhere with that kid, like babysitting and stuff. Like, you're telling me you just become a full-time babysitter until they're grown up, and then you're fine with making it a physical relationship? I can't. It's so much like grooming, and it grosses me out. The dialogue between a lot of the characters was very cringe. At one point, Leah and Seth, a brother and sister duo, were running to have Jacob's back for whatever. Seth gets there first, and Leah comes skidding in, and she's like, "I got your back, bro." I immediate cringe. Immediate cringe. I have a brother. Do you know how many times I've called him bro? Probably a grand total of 0. Maybe once jokingly, like in some kind of meme format. Never seriously. No, never seriously. And then Edward at the end saying, "Thank you, son," to Jacob. Why? Oh my god, it's so bad. Also, speaking of the end was so anticlimactic. Like, I did not remember it being... All of the action happened at the beginning of the book. Nothing happened. Basically from the time Renesmee was born through the rest of the book, nothing else happened. They went on little adventures. Renesmee aged real fast. And Bella figuring out how to be a vampire. The best vampire ever. And then all the vampires get together for a sleepover. Like, that's how it felt, you know? And then even the Volturi coming, and nothing happened. Like, don't get me wrong. I am a diehard book fan. I stand on the books are better than movies. But every now and then there's an exception. You know what's an exception? The Great Gatsby. You know what's an exception? Pride and Prejudice. You know what's an exception? Breaking Dawn. Of course they had to change that ending. Nobody would have watched it. Because literally part 1, Breaking Dawn, the movie part 1, had all the action that was in the book. Of course they had to change some things to make it more exciting and make people want to watch it. There would have been nothing. Nothing. So yeah, Carlisle had to get his head ripped off. Like, that was a necessary change, and they knew that. Somebody knew that. I was with the Romanians because they were upset that there wasn't any action. I was like, brothers, I'm with you. Like, bro, I'm with you. Because nothing. And then Edward gives us a recount of what they're thinking and what could have happened. Dumb. So bad. So I gave it 2 out of 5. Still better than plagiarism, and it's a 3.7 overall. I got it on Libby. As I mentioned in the last debrief, these books are no longer on Kindle Unlimited. So the cheapest option after Libby is $10.99 on Kindle. And then my final book of the month. I read The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. And this was a recommendation from Elle that I have been waiting since you recommended it. I've had it on my Libby trying to get it to come in. That was way back in, gosh, what was that? April, May, maybe? And it's taken this long to get it. So it's a long wait on Libby. I think whenever I returned it, there were already like 12 people waiting for my specific copy. I listened to it from the 26th to the 29th. Let me pull up the synopsis. The vibes were immaculate. Immaculate. So, fun fact for everybody, I come from a line of Farrows. And so, obviously, whenever Elle said this, it was so easy to put my family into those roles. Okay, so here is the synopsis. In the small mountain town of Jasper, North Carolina, June Farrow is waiting for fate to find her. The Farrow women are known for their thriving flower farm and the mysterious curse that has plagued their family line. The whole town remembers the madness that led to Susanna Farrow's disappearance, leaving June to be raised by her grandmother and haunted by rumors. It's been a year since June started seeing and hearing things that weren't there. Faint wind chimes, a voice calling her name, and a mysterious door appearing out of nowhere. The signs of what June always knew was coming. But June is determined to end the curse once and for all, even if she must sacrifice finding love and having a family of her own. After her grandmother's death, June discovers a series of cryptic clues regarding her mother's decades-old disappearance, except they only lead to more questions. But could the door she once assumed was a hallucination be the answer she's been searching for? The next time it appears, June realizes she can touch it and walk past the threshold. And when she does, she embarks on a journey that will not only change both the past and the future, but also uncover the lingering mysteries of her small town and entangle her heart in an epic, star-crossed love. I loved this. So it's set in North Carolina. So it's set in Appalachia, which is close to home. So it's so easy to picture. And on top of that, it's got this section in it that is 1950s. And like the dream, like this, Elle, you knocked it out of the park with this recommendation for me, because this is, oh my gosh, the level of wanting I get from this book. Like, and on top of that, a good love story too. Oh my gosh. It quite literally took until I think 2 chapters before the end, before everything finally clicked for me on how it all fit into the timeline. And I was like, oh, so those were the gaps I was missing. That's like, it's like I had 2 puzzle pieces and one was just cocked sideways and I was trying to force it in, and it was like, these 2 pieces for sure go together, but the way I had them turned wasn't compatible. And the 2 chapters from the end went and put it the right way, and I was like, oh, there it is. There's the picture I was looking for. And but yeah, once I got it, I have found myself thinking back on it, and I love it more and more. Gosh, the love between her and Eamon. Eamon had so much love in his heart for her. I can't. It's so cute. It made me want to cry.
but I was not feeling good that day, and so I didn't cry because I was like, I'm going to feel even worse if I start crying. So I did a little bit of research on the narrator because it's hard to explain, but the way that she pronounced words sounded familiar to me. And so I had to look her up just to see where I would know her from. And she read, her name is Brittany Presley. She read Reminders of Him, which I listened to way back in the day, probably 2022. That might be right. That was the first Colleen Hoover second Colleen Hoover book that I read. The first one was Verity. That's the one that I always joke about, how I went into it completely expecting a Verity type book. But yeah, so it's been a hot minute since I've heard her voice, but dang, did I clock it. And also, funny enough, she also reads Home is Where the Bodies Are, which Elle has read. Local Woman Missing, which I think both Elle and Casey. I don't know how y'all took it in, actually. But if you listen to it, this was her. Just the Nicest Couple, I'm pretty sure, Casey, you said you listened to. That's her voice. I kept looking because I was like, surely it's not Reminders of Him, because it's been at least 3.5, maybe 4 years since I've listened to that one. But that's the only one based off of the list that, and it was 25 pages long on Audible of how many that she's read. There were no other books that I had listened to on that list, so it had to have been Reminders of Him. So I was like, giving a high five to my brain there, like, you clocked it. I am 100% positive, Allie, that you did not like the missing time portion of this book. The missed time would have completely ruined it for you, which explains your rating of it too. Even though I say that, I only gave it 3 stars too. I liked it. But I don't know if it will stick around for a while in my head, if that makes sense. It is now, just because of how recent it was. But yeah. I gave it 3. It's a 4.2 overall. It is on Libby, like I said, but it is a long wait for anybody local. It is $7.99 Kindle is the next cheapest option. So, and that concludes my month. So I can't wait to hear what you guys have. So that was our November reading debrief in the style that we used to do before the podcast. So we hope you enjoyed it and had as much fun as us, but we want to hear from you. What did you read from the month of November? What was your favorite? What was your least favorite? Have you read any of these books that we talked about? Let's talk about it all. Just drop us a comment down below or come find us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, The Unfinished TBR. We've got an email, theunfinishedtbr@gmail.com. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify with brand new episodes every single Monday. So you might as well subscribe so you don't miss a thing. We love you and hope you have a wonderful week. Mwah.